This is Lewis Hart for the Ring Magazine. Delighted today to be joined in the Wasserman offices with Kalle Sauerland here on a nice...
Hey, Lewis.
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Just had a good chat about all things football.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a nice Wednesday morning. Yeah, how's things? How are you ahead of a exciting few months?
Busy starts of the year. We had a great press conference yesterday for our first Channel 5 event of the year. Harlem, Eubank, McKenna, and what we're here to talk about today, the return of Mick Conlan, March 7th in Brighton. Busy times, busy trying to work out the schedule for the first sort of 4, 5, 6 months of the year, and some big things in the pipeline.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, we're here today for the sign of Mick Conlan. Big signing for Wasserman, and a guy that has a big fan base and big support, especially back home in Belfast. And that return starts on March the 7th. But yeah, an important time in the career of Mick Conlan to be joining with Wasserman.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a very exciting signing. I'll make no secret. I've always been a big fan of Mick's, and you know, he's boxing through and through the whole family, from the dad, the brother. Proper boxing family. He won his first boxing championship at the age of 11, 20 years ago. There's a pedigree there that is phenomenal, going through obviously the whole amateur storyline, the bronze medal, Commonwealth gold, World Championship gold, obviously the Rio disgrace, but this is for me, of all the challenges in 20-something years in professional boxing of building world champions in all weights around the world, I think it's a fascinating one. We're tasked with delivering him his dream of becoming a world champion, and I think there's some real storylines to come. Obviously, he's back to business on March the 7th. But looking on from there, there's obviously that Lee Wood rematch, one of the best fights in the last decade for sure on these soils. But you can look further. There's obviously Josh Warren would be a great storyline. There's Nick Ball, world champion. The goal is the world title, but there's lots of big fights along the way.
For yourself, when you have someone like Mick, who is so well supported, especially back in Belfast, is it a bit of a refreshing feeling knowing that, you obviously have to build a fighter as a promoter, but the work's almost already been done when it comes to Belfast? That's always going to be a big sell, even though it's not always gone his way the past couple of years. But yeah, is that a refreshing feeling knowing that, when you go to Belfast, you've already got that home support?
It's a nice feeling. I think I was trying to count it the other day. I think we've built about 45 world champions over the last 20-something years. I'd say 80% have been from scratch, from zero up. There are some big names, obviously, we inherited during their careers. George Groves, Michael Kessler, boxers who already had a fan base. But I'd say, Mick Conlan's fan base, obviously huge, both sides of the Atlantic. So that helps a lot. It's not like you're inheriting a situation with someone who's looking for that world title shot. In boxing, you need to offer something at the table when it comes to the business side of things, and the fact that he's got this big following, that certainly helps.
When you have someone like Mick as well, who is coming off the back of the defeat to Lopez and the defeat to Jordan Gill, how do you matchmake someone that really can't afford to take another loss? How careful do you have to be when it comes to the return of someone where there's potential there, but we can't afford any more slip-ups? Does it make it a little bit more difficult?
There's steps in the journey, but the steps are, unfortunately, there's less steps that you're unable to do. You don't have the time. So, if you're in your early 20s and you're looking to put a wrong right, you've got more time, more steps to do it in. For Mick, he's obviously got a new setup in the gym. That's something that whatever part of your career is at, you welcome just getting out. Mm-hmm. Just getting out once and getting that confidence around yourself again, around that team. And from there on, really, there's not unfortunately, there's not too many steps to it. It's he'll get a very high world ranking very quickly, and be in a position to challenge very fast. And if you're a champion and you're looking, what's what's a great fight? You know, Mick Conlan at featherweight is certainly, definitely, I would say, the biggest draw at featherweight in terms of pulling power, gait, etc. But also in terms of a name that's been around for a long time, long before he signed professional forms.
Yeah, I guess leading on from what I was saying there, and he's always going to be a big name, but do you sort of understand times where it might be like, look, we can't afford, especially with the recent form, that you're a bit more careful to roll the dice in certain fights. Like, as you say, like, do you sort of see that they have to obviously be educated, as you say, that the rebuilding process it can't be a long one, but do you think that there's time where it's like, how many more times can we afford to like roll the dice in certain fights?
Absolutely. It's high stakes. Yeah. But you're not going to get around the fact that, he's just on the wrong side of 30, but that's still prime. So age-wise, absolutely fine. It's not really like Mick. Everyone learns until your last day. That's the idea of life. But he's got such pedigree, So he'll look to put certain things right, but at the same time, it's also. He didn't get the rub of the green a few times in his career. Look at that fantastic Lee Wood fight. That's one fight I'd love to make. It was a fight that, yes, it was amazing for the neutral. And at the time when I was watching it, I just thought, I think I watched the fight 3 or 4 times, which is rare for me. Watching that much boxing, you normally don't even watch a fight twice. But that one you had to go back and watch again. And would we all watch it again? Absolutely. So that's a great fight. It's a fight that, Mick will feel he threw away. And it's a fight that he certainly will want to put right. So that's a great target. But at the same time, I said that, there's other names domestically, but internationally as well.
Absolutely.
You can't avoid the fact that at the highest level of the sport, it's a good question. Yeah. Because at the highest level of sport, there are risks. In terms of how to pace, we can't work at a low pace of building a career from scratch. Mick's achieved so much in the sport already. Yeah. It's about that final chapter now, and But again, often you have to give strong advice on areas. But when I look at his setup with his brother and obviously his dad, who's an absolute legend, he's in a place where he has great advice. They all know also what's right, what's wrong. But in boxing, that's the excitement. That's why we watch boxing, is because you just don't know.
Yeah, well, that all starts on March 7th, and touching on March 7th, you talk about building stars in the hometown. Harlem Eubank returns to Brighton. Tyrone McKenna is the challenge. Obviously, another man coming over from Ireland as well.
You saw his last fight?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's an exciting fight. Yeah,
the reason he's coming over. Yeah. When you bring a man over from Belfast to fight, you know what's coming. You're going to get an absolute war. It's Harlem's time to step up. He wanted this fight. Winner takes a seat in the top 10 of the IBF rankings, IBF Intercontinental Belt. So it's about bringing him back. It's live on Channel 5. Where he's done an average of just under 2 million viewers per fight. So that is something that he has that big platform. But what we need is a standout fight, not just a win. A standout fight, and to have a standout fight, you need a strong dance partner, and again, high risks, but it's going to be one for the viewers as well.
When it comes to matching Harlem, and you look at a guy like Tyrone McKenna, who is going to have their no fear, like he's just an absolute madman out the ring and in the ring.
His record speaks for it.
Yeah,
he's lost. He's lost. He's lost to Catchall, Ridges, Progress. Had some great fights, but he's not been protected at all. Now, I'm not saying Harlem's been protected. Yeah. Harlem's been built, though, by a big promoter who's managed to match him the right way. So he said yesterday at the press conference, he's got a padded record. Yeah. He probably does, because he's been matched right along the way. He hasn't been thrown in. Tyrone's done it the hard way. He's been thrown in with big names, come out on top and lost as well. But he's going to bring he's going to bring water to the ring, but we believe in Harlem. And Harlem and Charlie is training a very, very positive around taking that step up now. You know, the last fight back was back to business. We saw what happened last year with the whole back and forth with you know, face-offs in rings with opponents that weren't signed and stuff like that. And you know, there were some mistakes made last year, and Harlem knows that, and he lost time. He's 30 years old now, 20-0. It's the time to step up. So March the 7th, you know, the cards are on the table.
Yeah. As you say there about the step-ups, and what comes to Tyrone would be he'd show something Harlem that he's never faced before in terms of that pressure fighter that's sort of going in there with no fear. Is it important as well to Harlem that we might see a different side to him because, you know, or as you say, we don't know what side we'll see because he hasn't faced someone like Tyrone before?
Yeah, I mean, look, we signed Harlem 3-4 years ago now, and you know, we're going to lie, I'm a promoter. He came with a name, didn't he? Yeah. But the improvements along the way have been great. They've been done in a traditional matchmaking way where the step-ups have been gradual. This is now a step up, a big step up. And this is the time to swim. Mm-hmm. We believe that's when you know, part of the promoters to decide when do you go for that step up? You know, when is that moment? And this is the time. Yeah. You know.
And it comes, you know, not looking past March 7th, but obviously we have people like Adam Azim fighting this weekend and other fighters. Do you think that's stuff that, I know it's at 147, but is it stuff you're keeping a close eye on, the likes of remake that Azim fight or other fights like that?
I think the Azim fight will always be there. It will grow. You're not going to get round that those two names will always be put together, especially with the history of the last year of that fight not being made. Yeah. And you know, look, I think Adam Azim is a terrific boxer. He's a terrific, seems like a terrific young man who is very focused on the sport. And I think that he would also probably be the first to admit that you know, he won in that fight last year. Harlem won in that fight last year, but the fight didn't happen. I think the approach to trying to put that fight on was the wrong one. Yeah. I think that the fact there was a face-off for the fight before anything had been agreed or signed was a mistake by Adam Azim's promoter. I think that they'd admit that as well. But at the same time, it's a fight that can happen. But it's, you know, it's a big fight, and it will get bigger and bigger. Yeah. We've seen recently, you know, obviously Harlem's cousin Eubank Ben is now happening. Yeah. That fights take time to make sometimes, you know, but it's a fight that will come. Yeah. But it's not like we're sitting here and saying it's got to be Adam Azim tomorrow. Yeah. No, we're trying to get into the top of the world rankings, a challenge for a world title. And if that happens to involve Adam Azim along the way, and we can build that fight into a fight where both fighters are rewarded for putting it all at stake, then fantastic. Yeah. You know, but that's something that we're not going to go out and call out Adam Azim the whole time. Yeah. That's not the way this is going to work. Yeah.
You touched on it there, and I'm sure it was a question that a lot of people asked you yesterday about Eubank Ben. And I guess a question for yourself, where you spent quite a few years trying to make that fight, and obviously the fight was made. And now I guess the fight is made, and you know, obviously you aren't promoting Eubank anymore. Like, how do you deal with that? Is it frustrating for yourself? Like, how do you?
Of course it is. Yeah. Of course it's frustrating, but you know, I've been around this sport for 3 decades. In fact, I'm 47 years old. I was born into a family where my father's in the Hall of Fame. So I grew up where fights are made and not made. You know, of course it's frustrating when you try and make a fight for a long period of time. But let's face it, we made the fight. The fight didn't happen for a reason that we all, I don't really know what the reason is now, was because there was no reason why we couldn't make the fight. So the fight should have gone ahead in the first place, but that's something that, you know, that's something for another day. As a fan, I'm looking forward to watching that fight. And that doesn't change because I've got the best job in the world. I wake up and I can make fights. Yeah. So, you know, I'm also happy always as a fan to watch boxing. You know, some of the fights that are being made at the moment, you know, especially in Saudi Arabia, of course, They're a fan's dream.
Yeah.
They're a fan's dream. So I love watching, even though I'm not involved in certain fights, I don't really care. I love boxing. I grew up in boxing. I've got boxing in my blood. I can't change that. So to watch great fights, yes, it's frustrating when you've tried to put on a fight for a long period of time and it hasn't quite worked, but I'll still be absolutely excited to see what goes down. I think that fight is a lot closer now than it was when we originally made the fight.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that about what you thought on the fight. Would you still believe Junior wins? I know he's not been complimentary of you.
Yeah, I don't really care what he's complimentary of or not. Yeah. That's his business, not mine. I don't really care. Yeah. But I think he'll win. I think he's the bigger man. I think that, you know, if you're Ben, why didn't he take a few fights back first, then take the fight? He's even older. Well, I get it. It's business. The money's on the table now. Take the fight. The excitement's there. It's, you know, arguably, I think the percentage chance for Ben has probably gone up. Yeah. But at the same time, I still put Eubank as a favourite, and I still expect him to win. Yeah. Out of interest, you touched on there. I know you made them comments about yourself at the press conference. Like, has there ever been? Have you had any conversation with Chris after that, or anything? I know Frank took legal action, but listen, I've been called worse than a scumbag, and I'm sure Chris has as well. You know, it is what it is. You know, you want my, I mean, if you're a fan and you want to know is Kalle Sauerland a scumbag, why don't you go and ask some of the champions I promoted? Why don't you go and ask, I don't know, ask Usyk, ask Inouye, ask Kessler, ask George Groves, ask David Hay. You know, I could go on. There's a long list of world champions in most weight classes from a lot of different countries around the world you can go and ask. But I'm happy to be labelled whatever Chris Eubank Jr wants to label me. Yeah. I'm not gonna get pursed on that. We had some good times. Yeah. We had some good times. We had some bad times. Yeah, that's life. Yeah. Before I do wrap up, did want to ask about a couple of fighters actually. Josh Kelly, what is the latest with the pretty boy? Exciting news coming. April/May. You know, it was the Wembley experience was, of course, it was great to be on that card, and it was, you know, it was terrific to rescue the night after Liam Smith pulled out, but it was supposed to be Liam's. We were so excited. We took a long time to make that fight, and it was actually the Riyadh season card that made the fight and saved the fight that we'd prior to that tried to make for a long period of time. So it was gutting, but at the same time amazing that he still got out in a very tough fight. But at the same time, look, he's top of the world rankings, WBO, 154. Is he staying at 154 then? Not necessarily. I mean, currently that's where his rating's at, but his last fight was at 160. So, you know, there's some exciting fight. When Eubank Benn's at 160. Yeah, okay. There you go. We'll fight the winner of that. Joking aside, that's an area where I see big fights being made in the next couple of years in the UK. You know, you've got obviously Eubank, Ben Eubank, apparently going to fight twice. Boxing, that always is one, you know, you never know how the first fight goes out. But that space with those names around it, Liam Smith around it, you know, last year there was a return of Kell Brook. That seems to have gone very quiet now. But those big fights come out and you'll see the amount of interesting people. Denzel Bentley has fought himself into a great position. They've done a great job with Denzel. When we promote the Denzel Bentley at Udofia fight, that was my first ever fight I covered. Was a cracking fight. Was it your first? Yeah, that was my first fight I went to. Right. So we were delighted putting that on. It was a great fight. So you know Denzel Bentley's also one that you'd throw in the mix there as well. I think he's number 1 WBO now. So he'll be looking to get a shot as well. All these guys sort of, there's a bit of a storyline there, and you know, people say, oh, well, they're different weights. But yeah, they're different weights, but at the same time, catch weights are being made to make big fights, and that's what it is. Yeah, absolutely. Kalle, always a pleasure to chat to you, mate. Good to have the first interview of yourself on the ring, which is brilliant. And appreciate you letting me in the office today and doing an interview of yourself. Thank you very much. Top man, thank you.